Yeah, I wanted to reorganize this because it annoys me. I'm not OCD. The more I say that, the more I'm going to believe it. Oh, my goodness. Um, so when I did the tiles a while back, the blue and whatever tiles, I started working on black and stuff. I started with 1x8s because 1x8s are the easiest to grab out of the pile. So I started with 1x8s and then 1x6s and then 1x4s, 2s, and 1s, and then miscellaneous. So I went from biggest to smallest, and that's fine. Doesn't matter. And then I filled everything else in the whatever. This one, I don't know why, but well, you remember I put the turntables here in the first slot, and I thought that was just gonna work out from there. But then I realized that all my 3/2 finger hinge parts would fill the whole thing, so I took the turntables out. So I'm going to move now. I'm going to move the 1x2s, 3 fingers and 2 fingers to the end, and then work out the other way. But whilst I'm doing that, and I have always liked the word whilst I am doing that. It's one of those old-timey words that I used to be an English major. And trust me, my elocution and my grammar is like 50 years ago, so I really have no care now, shall we say, that I use inappropriate words for specific things. I know what I'm talking about, and everybody else seems to know what I'm talking about, so it's good enough for me. So forget my elocution. My enunciation has never been good, period. Oh, by the way, so here's some Dave stories while we're doing this. So I was once 4 years old. When I was 4 years old, it was 1971. just to make whoever's out there who hasn't even born in the 90s or whatever to feel like I'm the old, hey, you kids, get off my grass. So 1971, I'm 4 years old. So it's one of those memories that, whatever. So my friend George, his name was George. He lived in the house next door on the little road that we lived on. Now, when I say next door, there was our house, there was a field, and there was their house. So it's a bit of a walk to get between the two houses. And George had an older sister named Kathy, who was, I mean, we're 4, so she's probably 7 or 8, a little more responsible than 4-year-old boys. And George had a swing set in his backyard. Now, you do not see them anymore, but back in the 70s, early 70s, probably late 60s and early 70s, it was ubiquitous. You would go to Canadian Tire, shall we say, or other stores, and you would buy a swing set that had no consideration for safety. Back then, it's like lawn darts. There's no consideration for safety. There's no warning labels. So this swing set consists of those tubes, probably aluminum, that made an A-frame and a pole going across, and then there was 2 swings, and there was the seahorse, or not the seahorse, the whatever the horse, the seesaw horse, whatever, that 2 people could sit on the thing and then push your feet back and forth, and that thing would go back and forth. But there was 2 swings in the sawhorse or whatever the thing was called, the seesaw. It's not even a seesaw, whatever it is. You know what I'm talking about if you're from my era. It had the 2 posts coming down, went onto this little platform with the 2 seats on it, and then had 2 little sticks at the bottom that you push with your feet so you could actually swing on the thing. But I don't even know why I'm talking about that, because that had nothing to do with the story. So George and I would just be playing around on the swing set, and we would, I don't know how or why, but we would take turns. One of us would be sitting on the swing, and the other person would be hanging from the bar on top, and we both be swinging back and forth and missing each other for fun. And occasionally, you get a graze across the head with the shoe because they're above you. Whoever's hanging from the post is above you, and you're sitting in the swinging back and forth, and they're swinging like this, and you're swinging like this and below. And at one point we swapped, and I was sitting in the swing set, and he's hanging from the post. And at one point, when I'm coming down and he's coming this way with his feet hanging, dangling, his feet connected with my front teeth. His shoe, boom, right into my face. I'm 4 years old. Remember, see, I forget so many things in my life, but I remember this vividly because this is what happened. I lost my 2 front teeth. One fell swoop, boom, lost my 2 front teeth. So I was 4. So they were baby teeth, but I lost my 2 front teeth. And I went crying into their house, and Kathy's there, and she's taking care of me. She's putting the Kleenex or paper towels in my mouth, and she walks me back to my house. My mom's there, and we go to see the dentist, whatever. And they can't do a thing. My teeth are gone. But then they weren't worried about it because in a few years I'm going to grow in my adult teeth, so who cares? The issue is if you lose your front teeth at the age of 4, I can almost guarantee, I'm not a dentist or anything, you're going to have a speech impediment. You're going to have a speech impediment because you can't say S because you don't have front teeth and your tongue sticks out and you go, that's what happens. That's what happens. So from 4 till, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, or past that, whenever the adult teeth come in, I could not pronounce my S's. And you look at all my school pictures, because back then they took school pictures, and me big smile and missing my front teeth until whatever age they grew back in. And they finally grew back in, but I still cannot enunciate without thinking about it. My S's, they always sound like TH's. So I went to speech therapy. I can't remember which grade I went to speech therapy in, but I think the damage was done. So I do try to, when I think about it, I can enunciate very, very well, but I have to think about it and do the enunciation and the pronunciation and all that stuff. And I'm not going to say that the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plane. I am not My Fair Lady here. Sandy and I saw that in the theater last year. Fantastic. But I will try to occasionally enunciate correctly. But I think most of my speech, whatever, is not really an impediment because it's not impeding me at all. But my elocution and my slight, somebody once said on this very channel that they found my, I don't know how they didn't call it a speech impediment. It wasn't an accent either. Just my enunciation was cute. I'm cute anyway. But I don't think I went into why I have this speech way of speaking. That's really grammatically correct. But the way I speak is mostly because of my missing teeth from the age of 4 to whenever they grew in, probably close to double digits. And then I went to speech therapy to try to be better. A lot of people did have speech therapy back in the day. I remember that. I wasn't the only one in my life that I found going through my life that had basically the exact same speech therapy that I had, where basically, if I remember correctly, you had these little pop-up dolls, and every time there was an S or a TH, you had to pop up the S one and say S properly, or the TH one and say the TH properly, enunciate the TH properly. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. But then I found out when I went through it, and then years later, I found out other people, oh, I went to speech therapy. Oh, really? And then they talked about the little dolls, little pop-up dolls. I thought, that's exactly the same one that I had, exactly the same speech therapy that I had. And I just find that interesting. So all these little things that happen in my life that I just always found interesting. And what I notice now is that there are ebbs and flows in life that I really take notice of, the ebbs and flows. And it's, you call it serendipity, you call it whatever you want. But I noticed that the people I seem to gravitate towards, my orbits, when you go through the flotsams and jetsams of the whole life of various streams of consciousness and thought and whatever else like that. And people talk about Maslow's and whatever else is, that I always seem to gravitate. I always seem to end up in the eddies of all the life streams with like-minded people, which I think is pretty awesome. And then when I talk to these like-minded people, that they've had similar experiences that I had. Why would this even come up in the topic of conversation in my lifetime? I met 3 or 4 people in my life that I've become close friends with, who have said, "Oh, I had speech therapy," and they talked about the pop-up dolls, and it brings me back to being 4 years old, getting kicked in the teeth. I'm not saying I thought that I was unique in my speech impediment or whatever, the speech therapy that I went into, but I didn't think that there would be people in my inner circle throughout my life that would have exactly the same experience, not necessarily missing their front teeth, but the exact same experience that I had. And I think about that, and I think that's an interesting thing that happened to me. And again, it means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of world traumas and experiences, and bring down whatever, and it's life changing. No, it's just they've had experiences, I've had experiences, and yet that experience that they had and I had does not come out when I first meet them. It comes out after 5, 10, 15 years of knowing them and becoming friends with them. And all of a sudden we find out that we have similar experiences in our childhood. And I think that's fantastic. I really do. And I think again, Eddie might be in the flotsam of the universe, but Eddie's hanging out there, kind of bringing people together. Thanks, Eddie. The eddies, the flotsams and jetsams, and the eddies of the currents of space and time. And all of a sudden, when I just said the currents of space and time, I remember Asimov, but I won't even go into that because Asimov is a whole other world of wonder and greatness in my life, which led me to a whole bunch of other people that I really, really appreciate in my life. So again, it does come down to you are who you hang around. But I also say you hang around who you are. So I think that's equally as important, because you are who you hang around. My dad always said water reaches its own level when we were growing up. And he was trying to imply in a very, very clear and direct method, direct way, that when you're growing up, hang around people who will bring you up as you bring them up, instead of hanging around malcontents and ne'er-do-wells and whatever. And again, I like use people who know me. I know I absolutely adore, not the purpose of, but I adore the word malcontent. And I adore the word contracted ne'er-do-well, because I use it to describe people who are malcontents and ne'er-do-wells. And it is a more civilized way of saying you're an idiot. But my dad always said water reaches its own level, but I just thought now, in my experience, you are who you hang around, but who you hang around is who you are, and on the personal level, not the life-changing level of you don't want to hang around people who are going to get into mischief or get in trouble with the law or whatever else. You want to hang, and I say this to anybody, and I've said this to Josh, and I said this to a lot of people, that you can change your situation. If you're in a situation that is not good for your mental health, emotional health, physical health, or like you're hanging around people who are going to bring you down or bring you into trouble, whether or not it's legal trouble or other kind of trouble, just being malicious and whatever, you can change that. I know it's tough. Peer pressure is a level. I never had a problem with peer pressure. One of my many saving graces is that it's never bothered me, and I never had friends who bothered with it. So it's been very good to me. But it really does come down to, I woke up, and you've heard this example from me before. My mom woke up one day and quit smoking, and she was a pack-a-day smoker. So people who say they can't quit smoking, I fully understand. I've never had an addiction, barring all this. I've never had an addiction, but my mom woke up one day. But I will not disparage people out there who have smoked and tried to quit, and they take repeated times with the patches and whatever else I got, and it takes them a long time to quit. I will never disparage or diminish that effort and the failure because I don't want them to feel like, because if you fail once, you're like, oh, and then you try it again, you fail again, oh, and then why am I even bothering trying to quit and blah, blah, blah. Keep at it. It doesn't matter how many times it takes, just keep at it, because it's the right thing to do. But on the flip side, I also know, and I've said this many, many times, that if you can't quit smoking, don't beat yourself up over it. Do not beat yourself up over it. Everybody's different, first of all. The genetic makeups, the chemical makeups, the brain makeups, again, to this topic, well, 15 minutes into it, talk about everything. There's a spectrum. and I know there's a spectrum. On almost everything that we have in life, there's a spectrum. And I've appreciated the fact that not everybody is a cardboard cookie cutout, or a replica, a photocopy of somebody else. Even twins, even identical twins who have so much in common. And again, I have cousins who are twins, identical twins, and I have some family members that are identical twins, who have many, almost exactly the same characteristics, but not everything's the same. Because it can't be. I mean, there's not a single person on this planet who is identical to you. We're worse than fingerprints. We're worse than DNA. So everybody's different. So do not disparage yourself. Do not bring yourself down by the fact that you're doing something or you're trying to make yourself better and it's not working. Because that's just going to make you in a vicious circle of downward spiraling. But what you can do is just, do what you can and appreciate what you can do. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or anything like that. I'm just a person who shows up every day. I keep on saying that. That says that life is worth living. And I have been, in my life, had some very, very, shall we say, debilitating scenarios in my life that made me, in some form or factor, think that life wasn't worth living at certain points. And yet, here I am. And that is because even through the tough times, I knew that there'd always, not to be pithy about it, but there's always tomorrow. And I got into my head, even though no matter what was going off the rails, divorces and whatever stuff and whatever, that the sun's going to come up tomorrow and there's going to be a new experience tomorrow. And I tried every single time that I got into a depressive state, because it does run in family, that I would remember that, or try to do something to make my life a little better. And most of that is hanging around people who brought me up as I bring them up. You are who you hang around. I hung around George until they moved away. George was a good guy. He moved away, I think I was 5 or 6 when they moved. But I remember him being a nice guy, and we played in the sandbox together. I mean, you're 6 years old. How much mischief can you get into? But he was a good influence on me, and I think I was a good influence on him. I remember going through grade school and high school in my little school in Winona, where most of us were working in the same direction. And again, I talk about walking in a direction. This is where it comes from. My whole youth of hanging around people, like-minded people who were interested in taking care of society, taking care of one another, and taking care of parents and grandparents and family and friends and whatever, and hanging out and having a good time. I was in Boy Scouts, I was in church, I was in a whole bunch of stuff that said, hey, let's hang out together and make the city better, the park better, go camping, whatever, and generally have a good time, but also put effort into each other and making themselves edification, blah, blah. I was very blessed with that. I keep on talking about how blessed I was in this regard with my family and my friends and the people, again, just the eddies of life in the streams, various life streams, where I've worked, my 2 longest jobs that I've had, 30 years now, the people I met there are still my friends today. And because we are appreciative of helping each other and showing up and being there for one another. And I think that's just literally the most fantastic thing on the planet. as being there for one another. And so I think about that, and yes, sometimes I do get a little bit picked on about my speech impediment. not really, but it did show up in that somebody posted one of my channels, on one of my videos. They thought it was cute, and I took it as such. I sure my accent or whatever you want to call it. It's just pure Canadian. But in the end, can I put that in there? Damn, cannot do that. Put these in there. I'll put those in there. It's even better. I don't know if I'm going to sort these out. I'm going to see if I want to sort these out. Just one of the meta things that I've noticed when I take a step back and look at how life happens, not necessarily related to me specifically, but this is my story. and I've been saying this for a while. When I retire, which don't know when, when I retire, my first day of retirement, I want to retire on a Tuesday, not a Monday. I want to retire on a Tuesday, or not a Friday, I mean. Tuesday morning, I want to be my first retirement day, and it has to be either spring or early summer, and it has to be a nice day. So that's going to be mandated in my retirement day. I don't want to retire on a rainy day. I don't want to retire on a snowy day. I want to retire on a nice, beautiful, sunny, blue sky day. Because every day when I drive to work, I usually take Lakeshore in Burlington, because the QEW is just a stupid mess in the Pearl Street. And every day I pass Spencer Smith Park there on the Lakeshore there in Burlington, and the sun's coming up over the lake, shining on the trees, shining on the park, shining on the waves, dappling, dimpling, dappling. There's an old poem, again, just popped in my head, that I did at Redeemer, by a monk of all things, that talked about dappling, the dappling of water, and the way the sun shone on it. And the sun's coming up, and the escarpment's over there. This is why I like living here, because the escarpment's always there, the lake is always there, Toronto's always over there. So it's just comforting. So anyway, and I'd be driving past Spencer Smith Park when I get tired and talk quickly, my enunciation out the window. And the people are jogging up and down the little strip there next to the lake and next to the fence there, and some people are sitting in the benches there watching the sun come up. My first day of retirement, I'm going to be sitting on one of those benches watching the sun come up, watching people jog by, watching a little birds flutter over there. And I'm going to get to about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to go, okay, I got things to do, but probably come back here and sort Lego. But I think about stuff. I think about, on the meta level, that a lot of people should, every once in a while, I mean, I'm not going to quote Ferris Bueller, but every once in a while, people should just stop and look at life. Just put yourself, your ego, your emotions, whatever issues you got going on, just stop and just watch the world go by for a minute or two, maybe 5, maybe an hour. I've sat in the mall over at Eastgate or whatever, and I've watched just people going about their business, and I say, wow, this is the world has got all these little life streams. You know, you have no idea what's going on in somebody else's world. You literally have no idea about what's going on in somebody else's world. You hear an argument over there, some little kids arguing with their mom. You have no idea what happened 5 minutes before. You're not going to know what happens 5 minutes after. But in that snapshot, this is what's going on. There's this person running frantically across the mall because of whatever, the car's leaving, the taxi, whatever. You don't know, but all of a sudden you see it. And this person you've never met before in your life, and you'll never meet him again. But this is what, something's going on, causing her some consternation, whatever. And you say, oh, when I see that, I feel like, can I help? But she's already gone. That's one of my flaws, if I want to call it that, is that when I see something where I feel like I should be helping, I do feel guilty about not helping. Something my parents instilled in me years and years and years ago, which will go into my next tangent. Sandy and I were driving. I don't know if I told this story yet. it happened a couple months ago. Sandy and I were driving. I took the day off from work, and we had to go somewhere up the hill, like Upper Wellington or something like that. We were up there, and we were driving back home. And this is again something about that I do. I usually overall try to take a different route home from wherever I am. Because you can just take the main drag, go down King Street or Main Street all day long. But every time you have to go to the West End, or go up the hill, you take whatever. But every once in a while, I'll try to change it up, and I'll come home a different way, because there's a million different ways of getting from here to wherever, and from wherever back to here. And so I said, "Ooh, I haven't been on concession in a while." In my head, so we're driving, we leave whatever we're leaving, and we're on Mohawk or whatever. And I think I want to take concession, because why not? So I scoot down to concession. We're going down to concession, and I'm looking around. I've been there many times. Retrosaurus is up there. No, I've never bought anything in Retrosaurus, but they have Lego. They have used Lego. I think it's a little pricey for me, because I already have all the sets. They had a Megacore magnetizer for $600 or something like that. I'm going, I am not spending $600 for a Mega. And again, when you look at it, that's not a bad price for a Megacore magnetizer, but I'm not paying that, because I already have to. There's one right over there. But anyway, so Retrosaurus right on concession. Anyway, so we're driving on concession, and I just blah 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 to Sandy. Because she's been here before, but she humors me with me telling her stories, because I grew up here. And so we're driving on concession, and I'm saying, I wouldn't have minded to live up here on concession, or just on East 34th, whatever, just off of concession, because it's a nice little area. It's not a busy area, because again, concession basically parallels the mountain brow, the escarpment brow, and so you're only driving on concession if you're doing something on concession or in the neighborhood. It's not like Mohawk or Rymel or Stonechurch, where you basically can drive the entire east to west or west to east of Hamilton, right? It's like a thoroughfare. Concession is, if you're there, because you have to be there. You're going to the restaurant, you're going to the Henderson. Those who get that, or whatever. But you're not using it as a thoroughfare to get from one end of the city to the other end of the city. So and so I said, I wouldn't have mind living up here. Maybe I did when I was looking for a house before I bought this. When I bought this one, my real estate agent did show me a house up on East 27th or whatever up there. I can't remember the exact address. And I'm going, it's too small. They're like little cottage houses up there, and some of them. I said, nah, not interested. But I did look up there. It was closer to Mohawk Road. So anyway, we're driving down concession, and all of a sudden, ahead of us, I did tell you the story. Anyways, there was somebody laying on the road, and we stopped to help. And a million things go on in your head especially in the 21st century, that this could be a trap, it could be a setup, it could be like, hey, you stop, we're going to steal your car. So that does go through my head, but I cannot just pass some person laying on the middle of the road unconscious. I just can't do it. so we stopped, and we rendered as the aid that we could. And it is what it is. There was nothing nefarious that we know of, blah, blah. But in the end, I will stop, and I will render whatever assistance I can render, because this is who I am. Because the eddies end of life. Like, had I not thought about that at that specific time in that specific area, I never would have crossed that path. And I'm going, again, was it serendipity, or was it just chance, or is it's just life happening? And I do appreciate the idea that life happens. If you don't stop every once in a while, you might miss it. Again, I wasn't going to quote Ferris, but I'm going to quote Ferris. Because that's where I find my greatest appreciation of, no matter what's going on in my world, no matter what's going on that could make myself depressed or upset or angsty, because again, I do get depressed and angsty on a great many things. But then I stop and I look. There was a person laying in the middle of the road. I mean, had we not stopped, somebody else may have stopped at some point in the future. You would hope, but if I would have, if we didn't stop, I'd be fretting about it to this day that we didn't stop. It would angst me. So I have to stop. Um, and I would hope that if I'm in a similar situation, that somebody would stop for me. That's how I look at it. And so people keep on talking about, like, why do you put effort into the society? What are you getting back out of it? My only it is 100% selfish altruism. Altruism, the want to do for society without recompense. Altruism is not actual altruism. If you actually boil it down, I mean, I'm not going to, again, Maslow and all those other things. Altruism is 100%, when you actually cut into it, selfish. It really is. I mean, it isn't because you're doing for society without thought of recompense, somebody doing something for you. But in the end, you're making society better, which would make people want to do something for you. That's the hope anyway. You might not think that's why you're doing it, which is great. If you're doing altruism for your own selfish motive, like in your head, you're doing it for selfish motives, and it's not altruism. But in the end, if you are doing good for society, like my parents were all that time, like we always did when we grew up in Winona, in the end, I'm a better person because of what they've given back to me. And I fully am very, very humbled and blessed by that I got to live a life where altruism was king. Altruism was the best thing you could do, and the fact that this is what we were doing for everybody else, and then everybody else was doing for us. This is a long stream of consciousness, shall we say, while I'm sorting all these things out. And I just wanted to talk about that kind of stuff because I think in the end it is important in so many aspects that I'm not going to talk about General Order 24, and again, that's a deep cut for those who got it. That's kind of parenthetically related, but there's a really old saying. Two people are walking, and my very good friend told me this years ago, but I heard it before that. But I didn't really grok the significance of it until we were talking about it one time. We were talking about all this heavy stuff, but two friends are walking on the beach. The tide's gone out. There's all these starfish that are suffocating because, of course, there's seawater creatures and they have to be in the water. And the tide goes out, so they're sitting on a rock and the sun's beating them down. And there's thousands of them that as far as I can see, along the beach, that they're gonna die. And so the one guy picks up a starfish and he throws it back into the sea. And the other guy goes, "What are you doing? Why are you putting any effort into this? Do you see how many starfish are out there? You're not going to save every one of them. What kind of difference are you going to make by what you just did?" And the guy goes, "Well, I made a difference for that one." And that is the only thing. I mean, it's pithy and whatever, but it's 100% appropriate. It's 100% dead on that one's good. Now, you can get into the dynamics of whether or not you should save a starfish. But that's a whole other topic. But I think about that I stopped to help, Stanley and I both stopped to help that guy. Not that we wanted a pat in the back. That's, again, do not say anything on here. That we didn't do it for that. I get to use it as a pithy story here, but we didn't do it for that. We were driving on the street and there's a person laying on the road. Of course we're going to stop. Of course a lot of people didn't. And again, I'm not going to fault them, really, because I don't know. Again, I don't know what their situation is. And this is the other point. As you said, if I'm sitting on the bench at the beach watching the sun come up, at Spencer Smith there, and people are jogging by, I have no idea what's going on in these people's lives. I have no idea. So who am I to make a judgment on them? Who am I to say, you're not doing enough? Who am I to say that? I feel, again, I should have been born Catholic. That's a deep cut. And considering that my parents were not Catholic, it's amazing how much guilt I carry around. We talked about that the other day. But I find it ironic how much I fret about what I'm not doing, but then whatever, let it go. But where am I here? So I putting effort into what you believe other people should be doing is going to be never ending of being upset, because people are going to do what they're going to do. Whatever situation, again, everybody is different. Literally, everybody's different. And so, getting your knickers in a knot over people not doing what you want them to do, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your emotional energy on that. And my recommendation is, do not waste your emotional energy on that, because you ain't changing people. Interventions, whatever. Again, we're gonna come back to addictions. They might sound good on paper, and again, I'm not a psychologist and whatever, but change has to come from within. I was depressed. Runs in the family. I was depressed in my 20s a lot. And saving grace, again, I had wonderful friends that made life fun. But the only thing that got me out of my depression was me. I talked to the doc about it a few times. And this is something that, I don't think we're in a month yet. We're talking about mental health issues. But I was at a point, not anywhere near any kind of really crazy, not crazy, it's just the wrong word, not any kind of life-altering point. But I said, maybe I should talk to somebody. And again, this is the outlier, by the way, because there are many, many good people out there to talk to. But this is, and I can tell you this because it happened to me. So I called up my buddy and I said, I think I should go talk to somebody. And he says, sure, I'll come along with you. So we went and saw a doc. I booked the appointment. We went and saw a doc, and we waited in the waiting room. We got called in, and the guy goes, so why are you here? And I go, well, I haven't been feeling exactly happy with life, kind of thing. He goes, well, what do you want me to do about it? Now, in context, I don't know if he knew who I was or how I would react, again, because everybody's different, how I would react to that statement. But I looked at my friend, who's been my friend for decades, and he looked at me and he said, oh, that's it. We got up, we left. And I said, but that, I won't say it was like a slap across the face. It was just, what do you want me to do about it? Oh, okay, well, you're no help, I guess. I don't know. And then, but it was a bit of a wake-up call. For me, it was not necessarily I have to take care of this myself, because I could have gone and saw somebody else. But I wasn't anywhere near any kind of point where I needed to see somebody else. But I took that as a stepping stone to every single day wake up with a thought or appreciation of the blessings I have instead of the blessings I don't have. And I went on with my life. And again, I still get a roller coaster ride. I will say at 58, the roller coaster ride is a lot less severe with the ups and downs. Also, the stability of my life, if we can call it that, with my marriage and my family and blah, 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 that I've come to appreciate that it's not, it's good. So that helps. But again, my life was also good when I was 20. When I look back at it, my life was good at 20. I had wonderful friends. I had a wonderful family. I always had a job. I've never been without. And yet I was depressed. So it has nothing to do with material goods or whatever. Sometimes it's just who you are and where your state of mind is and whatever else like that. And again, this is why you should go see somebody competent, somebody with letters behind their name, somebody who can appreciate where you are and help you through with whatever you're going through. Can't be me, because I'm a nobody who understands any of this. What works for me is not going to work for anybody else. I just happened to realize that I was perfectly fine taking care of this myself. And I did. So, and yet I do know for sure that if it comes up again, I'm missing things like this, that I will absolutely go see somebody. If I find myself spiraling again, I will absolutely go see somebody, because it helps. Therapy helps. Do not be scared. It's not a 4-letter word. It's not evil. It's not. If you break your arm, you go see a doctor. If your brain is, I won't say broken, but if your brain is not thinking in a way that you want it to think, again, because there's a spectrum here. I'm not going to say your brain's broken. You're not broken if you're depressed. You're not broken. It's just where you are in your life right now. Go see somebody with letters behind their name. Go see somebody competent to help you through that. I don't know what the doc was doing on that day that I saw him, and this was like decades ago, where therapy wasn't as well researched as it is now, because again, 30 years ago therapy versus now therapy is completely different. They handle it completely different, from what I've been told, and so it's just like everything else in medicine. You wouldn't want to be treated by a doctor who ended their studies in 1980. The medical field has come so far from 1980 to now, and that's like 45 years ago, right? You would not want to be treated with 1980 medicine. Then you would know. I've been told this, and it's kind of sad to say, but if Terry Fox was alive today and got that cancer that he had that actually killed him, he would have a huge prognosis of living, more than he had back in 1981, whenever he passed away, because that has come so far. Medicine has come so far. Understanding the human body has come so far. Understanding the human brain has come so far in our lifetimes. And yes, there's going to be outliers, and yes, there's going to be idiot doctors out there, and yes, there's going to be idiot people on the internets out there, and all that stuff. Just, if you're not comfortable seeing that person, go see somebody else. You are worth working on. Again, I'm not going to do any interventions. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I would never presume to tell anybody what to do with their lives. But I do know for myself that if I find myself in a state again, I would have no problem. I had no problem the first time. And I don't know what the doc was doing that day, but I know for myself, I had no problem the first time. And I would do it again tomorrow, because it is the right thing to do, because you're better here with us than not here with us. But anyway, where am I here? I'm almost done this. That's good there. And we're just down here. I don't know what would fit in there. Where would these things go? Everything fit better, easier before, and that would not be good. So now that doesn't leave room for these, because I need to, in the end, ish. These things fit in there. That life is beautiful. No matter what's going on in my life, I realize that there's always a time where things, the ebbs and flows. This is, I guess, bringing us all around back together. There are ebbs and flows in everybody's life. There's ups and downs, it's goods and bads. I've been through a lot of it in my life, and yet I'm still here anxiously and actively and wantingly to look forward to tomorrow. So no matter what was going on in my life, and I don't know where, I think that came from my parents too. I honestly do. No matter what I was going through in my 20s, again, with the genetic component of depression, because it runs in the family, but also with the stuff that I thought was going bad in my life at the time, which exacerbated the depression, that my parents, being who they were, with the love life and love society and love the people around you, and demonstrating that daily, I knew I was going to get over it. I fundamentally knew in my head I was going to get past this, through it. A lot of people didn't have that, or still don't have that. What am I gonna do? Okay, I can do this. I'm gonna pull these things out here because I didn't want to do it this way, but I will do it this way. I'm trying to make this thing cohesive from left to right. And I'm gonna put these guys over here. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So that was a whole bunch of tangents, by the way. Tangents brought to you today by the letter. Oh, and this is the other thing. Sandy and I we were home. Josh is out with his girlfriend today, so it's a Saturday, and so we were looking for something to do. So when we went out for dinner, yay! No kids, so we're like empty nesters. If you want to say that. So we went out for a Harvey burger. I haven't been to Harvey's in a while. Harvey's is awesome. That's all. There's one more. There we go. So now, 3-finger, 2-finger, these little things for the trains and the Robo Force arms, the control sticks for classic Space Lot. How did that get in there? The 3-finger on the side. Again, I just put it in the wrong spot. There's me putting it in the wrong spot. Get over here. The tile with the 2 fingers, and then the buckets, and then the 8 wide, and then the posts for all the sailing ships, and then the turntables. So that is that. I'm happy with that. What I could do, I could take these things out. Maybe I will take these things out and put them somewhere else, and put the turntables over here, so I have a bigger space left over there. I was talking about something 5 seconds ago and I forgot about it now. Yeah, let's go put those in there because you see them there. That's a little easier. Let's go to empty spot at the top. There you go. So that is done. On to the next one. This is a slow, methodical process. I had an idea. Obviously, I was going to talk about something, and I completely forgot about it now, so I'm sorry about that. So, it is what it is. Yeah. So, I can't remember what I was talking about, so too many tangents. Life is good. Life is honestly good, no matter where you are in the world. I don't know what to tell you. That's all I got right now. That's it. That's all. I'm gonna finish sorting these things out over here, and then put these away. And it looks like I made a mess over here. I got all these guys that I don't want to mix up now. And I don't want to quote Red either from Shawshank, even though it could. That's it. That's all. I've gotten too deep and I lost too many threads on this topic, and it's been on my mind a little bit because I am getting to the age where I'm thinking about, not necessarily, not the word legacy, but I'm thinking about impact on other people. I've thought about that my entire life. Again, I felt, as this kind of brings up this topic again to make it more clear, I do feel guilty about my impact on other people, that I'm not doing enough. I've always felt that way. It's something because of who my parents were, where basically every night we're doing something for the church, the community, the whatever. I'm not saying it was every night, but it was a lot of nights. But again, we still had so much fun with ourselves. So it wasn't like it was a burden to do that stuff with the community. I love Cubs. I love Scouts. I love Ventures. I love being a leader in the Boy Scouts of Canada for a little while, helping out where I can. I love the camping. I love the biking. I love all the stuff. My knots, though I'm forgetting 98% of them now. But because we're always moving and on the go to help out everybody, it felt like when I stopped doing that I'm not doing enough for community. I think that's where it comes from. I have learned to live with it, but I have not learned to live with it well. That's the best way of putting it. Sandy and I talked about this the other day. I feel guilty, like literally a lot, because I feel like I'm not doing enough. Uh, and it is, I think that does stem from my upbringing with my parents, that they were so busy trying to take care of a lot of stuff, and that I'm not. I'm sitting here making stupid videos for 49 minutes and playing Lego, which is good enough for me. And I do show up for shows, because I want to show up for shows. That's my little bit of a joy, huge joy actually. If I don't want to diminish it, it's a huge joy for me to show up for shows. But it is something that I do that kind of also brings it back to my parents' volunteerism and what we were doing as kids in volunteerism, that it is a volunteer thing, and I love doing it. And so when I feel like I'm not doing enough for the community, the Lego community now, for talking about that, and the friends that I've made in the Lego community over the years, over the decades that I've been in the Lego community, that I'm not stepping up enough, it is something that I contend with. And it's 100% something I contend with. I think my good and dear and close friends, I haven't been there enough for. But it's something I, but because of my life, I have to learn to accept that I don't think they feel that I haven't been there enough for them. And if they have, I'm sorry. But I have to live with that myself, and I do. Most days I don't think too much about it, but every once in a while I come back to the point where I should do more, and yet I don't, because I don't have the wherewithal. That's a nice way of putting it. I do not have the wherewithal to do it, and I accept that for the most part. and so it is a struggle of balance. Let's just say that it's a struggle of balance between my ideas of what I should be doing and what I'm not doing, versus what I am doing. And so some days I say I'm doing enough. There's a little story behind that, about doing enough, and I'm not going to talk about that right now. But why I had these things out here 5 seconds later, right in the middle. So it is something that I think about, and people I've talked to about this say, Dave, you don't have to. It's built into my head now after 58 years. It is built into my head, so it's something I know. I have this in my head, and so therefore I do not, because knowledge is power. So again, to tie all this stuff up together, the more you know about who you are, when you again stop, watch the world, figure out in your head where your head is, take a step outside your own thoughts and say, on a meta level, if you want to call it that, those stupid words that people use these days, and say, why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling this way? Where is this emotion coming from? And you say, oh, it's coming from, it's not from me, but people say it comes from the childhood trauma or whatever, some sort of angst or whatever that happened, or whatever. It could be anything. It could be work. It could be whatever. People make you feel guilty. But what happens is that you have to stop and say, that's where that's coming from. That's what happened when the doctor says, what do you want me to do about it 30 years ago, whenever he said it to me. And my buddy and I look at each other and say, okay, we're going to go now. And we talked about it on the way back to coffee. We went for a coffee, obviously went for a coffee. That it's in my head. I have to do something about this. I have to not spiral. Really, because that's what I was doing. I was spiraling. I'm not doing enough. Some bills aren't getting paid. I can't seem to keep a job, because this is like right after college. It was a recession too. So again, I took that into consideration. There's a whole bunch of factors, a whole bunch of complex and complicated factors, eddies and life stuff, like life streams that are going on. Going down the rapids. Again, I'm making a lot of euphemisms here, but going down the rapids, going down this raging river of a whole bunch of stuff coming at you. You're dodging rocks. You're going, oh, the birds are flying. Whatever analogies you like. Life gets busy. And all of a sudden, you don't have enough time to catch your breath, and you don't have enough time to source out and suss out and work out where these actual angst and stuff is coming from. And so, therefore, I go sit on a bench, watch the sun come up. Right, and work it out in my head. Where is it? Because again, the world's going to be there tomorrow. The world is going to be there tomorrow. Trust me, bro. The world's going to be there tomorrow. Whatever's going on today, the world is going to be there tomorrow. Now, if somebody's watching this a million years from now, that might not necessarily be the case. But today, in the 21st century, the world is going to be here tomorrow. I can put the money on it. And so just take a breath and say, what can I do? What is the issue? Where is this upsetness and the angst coming from? And my guilt comes from, fundamentally, my upbringing. And again, I don't want to say that in a disparaging way, because again, I adored my upbringing. My upbringing was literally fantastic. Very blessed. But in that context of my upbringing with my parents and the society that I lived in, where all these patriarchs and matriarchs of society would just give the shirts off their back to everybody who came across the door, you say, I can't keep up with them. And I think that's what it comes down to. I could not be them. And the issue is they never put that expectation on me. They never did. They never said, "Oh, Dave, I wish you were more like us." That never happened. If you were the good altruistic person, you would never say, "Oh, everybody else has to be the same as me," right? They were just, this is who they were, right? They would just show up at every event and put the tables out and do the dishes and sweep the floor, build the house, fix the door, whoever. Some old lady down the street needs some help cleaning the yard, they would be there, without any thought of recompense. I love that word, by the way. It's one of my little elocution words. Recompense. They would do that without any thought of it. It's not like I'm doing this and they better not pay me. They wouldn't even think about payment. This is why I love why I love the community I lived in. This is who we were. We were 100% socialist, by the way. That's socialism. Oh, bad word. Private socialism. That's me. And this is the community I grew up in, and I kept on saying I couldn't keep up with them. It's like here's an example while we're talking about it. It's like you're let's go back to school, because that's where a lot of stuff comes from. I was not an athlete. All my cousins were athletes. I was not. And so I would start in gym class. Oh, you're a cow dice. You can do this. No, absolutely not. Oh, but your cousin Jim and your cousin Patty and your cousin everybody else can. Oh, look, they were so good at this. Why aren't you? Okay, nobody's ever said that to me. Wow. I won't say nobody. But I also think this is where my laissez-faire and cavalier attitude comes from, because I grew up in a society where everybody knew my last name and everybody knew who my parents were and my uncles are, and everybody knew the whole family and who they are and how much they are pillars of the community. And it's like, why aren't you more like that? They never said that. But, and so I couldn't jaywalk without it getting back to my house. By the way, oh, I saw little Davy walking across the street, not watching for cars, whatever. So you can either like completely go off the rails and become antisocial and whatever, and like completely screw society, or you can be like me and just say, why am I breaking? I never thought or occurred to me to break the law. This is the law. This is the way it is. I have studied the law and some laws, and any laws that I find are unjust, I don't pay attention to. But I don't go out of my way to antagonize society. I do not go out of my way to be a malcontent or a ne'er-do-well. I do not. I will not. You could not pay me money, lots of money, to do something that I think is going to be detrimental to society. You couldn't do it. I'm not going to bring up the COVID deniers. and the idiots thereof. And again, that's the only time I really get my back up is people. I talked about this, so again, we're 59 minutes into this. So, but moral virtues versus moral, I always forget the word I always use for this, moral foundations, moral commandments, moral duties versus moral virtues. Those are two completely separate topics. My parents were 100% morally virtuous, a society-based moral virtue. They went out of their way to make society was better. They would work their asses off. My mom would spend weeks getting plans together for a weekend camping trip. She would spend weeks getting it prepared and blah, blah, getting make sure all the ducks in a row, because that's who she was. My dad, same way. That's who they were. They morally virtuous people. But moral duty is what everybody should be. And if you don't adhere or work on or appreciate your moral duties to the society you live in, that makes you the malcontent. That makes you the ne'er-do-well, never do well. You're not doing well for society. You don't have to have any kind of moral virtues at all, but you have to appreciate your moral duties to the people around you in the society you live in. And the example I give, and it's such an easy example, is littering. If I pick up litter that's on the ground and I put it in the trash can, that's a moral virtue. I didn't have to do that. I don't feel guilty about not doing that. I drive down the street every day, there's litter everywhere. I don't feel guilty for not picking up litter that's not mine and putting it in a trash can. I keep on thinking once in a while I'm gonna go around our neighborhood here and pick up some trash. But that's a moral virtue. Nobody has to do that. It shouldn't be commanded to do that. If you want to do that, my hat off to you. Fantastic. A moral duty is not to litter in the first place. Do not throw your litter on the ground, because you're detrimental to society. You throw your piece of trash on the ground, somebody has to pick that up. Usually we have to pay them. So that's my tax dollars. But in the end, that's a moral duty not to litter. And so that's why I separate moral virtues from moral duties. My parents were 100% societal moral virtuous. And the society I grew up in was 100% society virtuous, moral society virtuous. They would always be there for another, give the coats off their backs, whatever, always be one another. I won't say they're Mennonites. They weren't Mennonites, but they took their responsibility to each other seriously, and they would show up for everything. For church events, for garage sales, for bottle drives, for all that stuff, they'd be there. The same people. It just became the same people are doing the dishes after luncheon. Like the same people. 100 people enjoyed the dinner. 5 people in the kitchen. so the same 5 people every single time. Aunt Ruth, Aunt Muriel, Aunt Edith, a few other people, Mrs. Yim, wonderful lady, a whole bunch of people. But they were morally virtuous. The moral duties is not to make their lives harder. so anyway, so this is how I differentiate between moral duties and moral virtues.